So if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel because, you know, I have awesome content and I really want to share it with you. And if you don't follow me already on Instagram, then you're missing out. So hurry up and get to it and follow me at medical_Mcat. So I watched my other video and I literally couldn't stand how my head was like always tilted. So that's my goal this episode, is to like chin down. Here we go. But today I will share with you 5 ways I enhanced my MCAT studies. When I was studying for the MCAT, you're probably like, aren't you a third-year medical student? Absolutely. But I remember the MCAT being one of the worst experiences I'd had getting into medical school. It was not a fun time. It was honestly the opposite of a fun time. It was a bad time. And I will share with you my MCAT experience, but I also wanted to shed some light on some ways that I kind of boosted my experience and really just got to medical school from kind of learning what wasn't working. So, and I mean, it's kind of loaded, right? Like there's well more than 5. I could go on and on of the things I did different, but these 5, when I was in my like immediate studies, is truly when I started to see the difference. So let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about what the MCAT is. So the MCAT is required by all US medical schools in order to get accepted. And it is 6 hour and 15 minute of content total with breaks included. It is 7 hours and 33 minutes or 30 minutes exam. And it is a doozy. You get designated breaks throughout the exam at the end of each section. It's made up of 4 sections. The first being chemistry and physics, or chem phys. The second one being bio and biochem. CARS is the third, and then psych soc is the 4th. And psych soc is short for psychology and sociology. And so if I'm not mistaken, it's in a designated order. I cannot remember the order, but I'm pretty sure I might have mixed up bio and biochem with CARS, but chem phys was first on my exam. And I'm pretty sure psych soc was at the end. They might have changed it. I took the MCAT in 2018, and so it was before the COVID situation. I know they made it shorter for that. Sorry, I was trying to make sure I'm still recording. But I know they made it shorter for COVID, but for me, it was not shorter at all. You have 59 questions per section, but CARS is shorter. And then you also have a little bit of math and like the physics portion, but it can have math throughout. It's passage structured. So you'll have approximately 10, I think CARS is 9. So the way it looks is you'll basically have a passage. It gives you kind of a blurb, a little bit of an experiment sometimes. It's telling you something. And then from the passage, you're going to pull out inferences or pieces of information that weren't spoon-fed, but you kind of have to like piece 2 and 2 together, mixed with a little bit of knowledge. It's like an educational cocktail, but like on fire. Yeah. So you'll basically have probably like 5 to 6 questions for each passage. It's multiple choice. It'll basically just gauge how much you got from the passage just reading it. So it's kind of intense. You're kind of in a time crunch, but you also have to like apply knowledge, a little bit of assumption. It's like the safe amount of assumption. It's wild. Things to know. You want to practice. You want to have done this before. This is not something people just like walk into. You don't like wake up one morning and is like, I'm going to take the MCAT. Maybe you do. Wow, that's bold. But whatever the case may be, most people really study for it. I studied about 3 months, but I also did a post-bac program when I took the MCAT. My MCAT journey, in a nutshell. The first time I took the MCAT, I was a rising senior, because I was a super senior, I guess, when I graduated. So I was a rising senior, and I got into a really awesome program called the PAP program at KU School of Medicine. And it's a really great opportunity they basically provided us with a Kaplan course. And it kind of gave me a taste of what the MCAT even was. I had no idea what it was. I had to Google it. And when I Googled it, I kid you not, my stomach sunk to my feet. I was petrified. What is this monster of an exam? And then I find out it's basically everything I learned in undergrad, but like really didn't, because I was just trying to take tests. Yeah, I know. I was the problem. With taking that course, at the end, everybody took the Mcat. And so I paid for my, exam. I really only took like probably one practice test, maybe two. And the Mcat does cost, when I took it, it was $300. I'm pretty sure it's still that much, but it could have, I think it increased at some point, but I'm not sure. But roughly $300 each time you take it. You can really only take it 7 times total in your lifetime. When I took it, they might have increased it or whatever. But so I took the test, got a 489. Which I didn't feel was competitive. I didn't feel like I could do it. Comparing that with like the rest of my application, it just wouldn't be enough. Some people have like different opinions on the scores. And in our society, opinions are changing as whether or not scores matter as much. What score is basically, what you need. For when I was applying, I was really aiming for a 500 or over. That was like my comfort zone. And that was considered average because it's scored on a bell curve. So I was aiming for a 500. And when I took it and got the 489, I was like, I can't use this. So immediately I was like, what can I do? So I got into a postbac program. And that was a whole experience in itself. I will tell you guys about that in another episode. But got into the postbac program. I was really excited because they basically focused on teaching you everything that's on the Mcat, but they do so in courses. So they give you a chemistry class, they give you a physics class, they give you a biochem class. So it was basically the Mcat spread out and like in the format of a class, or teaching you what you need for the Mcat. So it was really intense. It took a lot of work. Came time to like get to my focus studies, and these 5 things, because at first I was taking my practice test, really wasn't feeling too hot, didn't feel like I was seeing the results that I'd wanted to. And so I was like, I need to change something. So these are 5 things that I like kind of realized made the difference. So number 1, UWorld. UWorld is an amazing resource. I use it now as a 3rd-year medical student. I used it studying for step 1, and you'll learn about that when it comes. Don't worry about it now. If this video applies to you, don't worry about step 1 yet. I was so glad to use it for the Mcat. I would basically do my questions, and really what made the difference was their explanation. UWorld has outstanding explanations. They give pictures, like amazing pictures. They really like break down what's going on, and they explain each answer, and it really gives you a kind of detailed answer on why this is the correct answer, what you should have kind of been thinking. So really amazing resource. So it is not free. I do apologize. It is $250. The cheapest option they had was $250. You get like 2,000 questions for 90 days. So that's pretty solid if you're doing 3 months of studying. And this was paired with another point that I'm going to highlight. But basically, UWorld was a great way for me to like test my knowledge. I would study a topic. You can like structure it so that you're like studying very specific topics, which was really nice too, because if I knew I was rough on something, then I could immediately just quiz myself on that. So it kind of worked out really well. I really liked it for that reason. And then it was just really nice to kind of like go over questions. Like you could keep reusing them, once you get it wrong, it doesn't just go off into the abyss. You can keep studying that. So that's really important, but we'll get to that point. So the first one, UWorld. Number 2, I had a study group. And I was kind of pressed about this. I didn't like studying in a group. I had never been like a group study kind of person. And for my postbac program, it was basically not a choice. They were like, who's in your study group? So I knew the people that I wanted to be in my study group early. I know that I'm the kind of person, I like to talk. I want to like, if I'm going to study in a study group, I kind of have to make sure I have nothing really to talk about with them. And I knew that about myself. Really important. So in knowing that, I got my study group together. We had a really structured way of doing things. And we made I'm trying to make sure I don't like skip ahead. We made our study schedule very early. We knew kind of what structure we wanted. So like we had a structure where we would teach one another. All of us would study a topic, and then we like sectioned. I know we use like the Kaplan books, and so we sectioned the portions so that we would have a certain portion to study on Mondays from biochem, a certain portion on Tuesdays from physics, Wednesdays was psych, Thursdays sociology, Friday we have chemistry, Saturday practice test, Sunday rest and review your practice test. So it was a very much so, and I really hope I included everything from there. Biochem I think I left out, but we'll get there. The point is, you structure it so that you can cover all of your topics throughout the week and you're making progress. You want to see like longitudinal progress as you're studying, and you want to be getting through all of your sections. I think for me, I got to a point where I had to be comfortable with knowing that I hadn't studied entirely everything. But I wanted my scores to reflect that even if I hadn't studied everything, I was able to, make it past that 500 mark. So in our study group, and we had all of that in mind, all of us felt like, okay, if this is our goal collectively, then we're going to make it. And so we would teach one another our topics. We would do practice passages together over the topics that we covered, because everyone would essentially have a passage with maybe 2 or 3 questions associated with it. And that was like really fun. We also did things like drills, where we would have the amino acid structures. I loved doing this. We would have the amino acid structures on a Quizlet, pull it up on the TV, for everyone to see, and we would go through it, and, everybody would go through and write down, this is this one, this is this one, this is this one. And it was just a really good way to like kind of quiz ourselves, but like do it in a group setting where you're not judged and you're comfortable and you realize, oh, I got this wrong, or I got this right, and I'm really good at this one, but I'm really bad at this one. So a lot of the process was learning how you learn and what doesn't work for you. And that was huge. I really appreciated the ways that I was able to do that when I was studying for the Mcat. And I really wanted to make a point to carry that over to medical school. And I think for medical school, it really helped me understand that learning is flexible, and learning is something that you don't master. You don't master how you learn. You master how open you are to changing how you learn and adapting, because what you're learning isn't always going to be the same. You just have to know that. And so when it does change, when it becomes something, it's like, that is a complex topic. How am I supposed to get that? You're able to manipulate your thought process in a way that allows you to really understand it. So study group, long story short, at some point we got to the point where we had to break off because it is an individualized test. You're going to take the test on your own, and that's just how it is. In knowing that, we had a deadline for when we wanted to get through all of our content. And then even though we weren't studying together still, we would do our practice tests together. We would, meet up to study quietly together. So it wasn't like we were completely isolating one another. Number 3, reading research articles. So I got the opportunity to be a president of the journal club in my postbac program, which may be one of the nerdiest positions I've ever held. It was really cute. It was nice because we basically read the research articles and then we would meet up in a group to discuss them. And for us, we were kind of focused on having MCAT topics for each research article. So it would be a psychology article or a biochem article, something very lab bench kind of research, even, because sometimes they get to that. So we wanted to try to expand the ways that we would kind of read these research articles, and we tried to make it stuff that kind of came up on the MCAT. So something that I remember being on the MCAT was histones and DNA structure, and so methylation, things like this. So we would look up research articles that had to do with that, and I think that really helped me understand the structure of passages. They said all the time in our postbac program that passages are essentially snippets of research articles, and they would cut out the parts with the answers essentially, and they would want students to be able to get to the conclusions within the research article without reading the whole article. It's kind of wild. It's actually torture. This was like a really good way for us to practice reading that language, getting comfortable with the format, and knowing, okay, this is my method section. This is where they talk about the experiment and how it went and the conclusions and what conclusions they kind of got from it, as well as knowing this is the role of this enzyme or this protein that they gave me the abbreviation for that I've never heard of. And now I have to assume what it does, the Mcat. So it's just like, it kind of gave us an idea of this is kind of how they're formatted. And knowing the format allows you to go to the answer faster. It allows you to kind of get the right details that you need to kind of paint a picture enough. And it just really, it worked out. In undergrad, I didn't read research articles. Like, I had never done research in undergrad, and I was really worried about that. So that was a really nice way for me to strengthen that. And it really did make the difference for me. Oh, I feel like I'm zooming. I'm so sorry. So, number 4. This is a really big one. And it came with me in medical school, hands down. So, studying my incorrect answers. When I tell you, studying my incorrect answers was the way. The way I formatted this, I had a spreadsheet and I had a different document for each subject. And I structured it, and I will include kind of a walkthrough of my incorrects for my Mcat, because I think that was a really good way for me to go through it. And I did a little different for STEP. So if you watch my Step 1 video, then you'll see how this idea adapted. And a lot of students do this for Step 1. I'm sure many medical students or many undergrad students are doing this for the Mcat. But for me, I had no idea. And this was completely new when I tried it. So I had a spreadsheet, and, it had the question, it had the test that it was from, because I wanted something that allowed me to, if I needed to go right back to that question and say, okay, this is the context. This is kind of what they were hoping for. And this is what I said. So when I would write down, because you have to include why you got it wrong. Why you got it wrong. But you're not just going to say, this was the answer. You're not just going to say, they wanted me to say Y and I said Z. No. I want you to look at the difference between Y and Z. And then you're going to say, I did not know this, or I did not conclude this from this statement in the passage. I didn't, come to this conclusion because I thought this is how I interpreted it. And so really you're trying to get to, what is the error in my thought process? Because the more you iron out that thought process, the smoother it is going to be for you to get to that answer. If that makes any sense. I'm probably just rambling, and for which I'm so sorry. But if it made sense, I'm thankful. So, I had the spreadsheet, and I would study my spreadsheet constantly. I mean, I would literally just go over it. I would highlight it just to kind of get it down. For physics, I would write down the equation and say, I wasn't sure how to use, I didn't know that you use this equation to figure out this concept. And knowing how those equations were used allowed me to really piece things together. I was under the impression, this was the biggest lie that I told myself, that if I saw units in, my passage, then I could just plug and chug. No, literally, they know if they give you units and you plug and chug, then that's basically giving you the answer. But if they put it in words, and knowing those formulas in words really does help, because half the time they do tell you the wavelength is this, the, acceleration was this. But if you don't know the abbreviations for these things, but you know the formulas, you're not going to know how to piece them into the formulas. So knowing the formulas in words, as well as understanding when it's appropriate to use those formulas and under what context and what circumstance. And a lot of the formulas overlap. So that's very necessary. But studying your incorrect answers, when I tell y'all physics gave me ulcers, not gonna lie. It was just so far from my mentality. I never was a physics person. But anyway, So studying my incorrects really helped. And I know the last week when I was preparing to take my actual exam, I studied my incorrects, like just printed out that document, and I went through all of my incorrects. And then two, I made a Word document of concepts I was sick of getting incorrect. And anytime I saw myself continuing to get something wrong, I would go to this document and I would just type, this is what's going on. And I would almost yell at myself, this is what this means. This is the definition. This is how you apply it. This is the context. This is not what it does not mean this, So just really highlighting this is something that I need to nail down. And I think just doing that, I became more privy to when I saw those concepts come up, when I was more aware of, okay, this is a passage that includes a topic that I struggle with. Let me take my time to really understand what they're saying. Or I know I'm really bad at inferring what these enzymes do. So let me look at what else is going on in the picture so that I can understand, okay, this is the context. But that was a really good way for me to kind of solidify what I was getting wrong and then fix it. And you can't fix it if you don't know what you're getting wrong. Number 5. Holy cow, we're already at number 5? I'm zooming. Am I still recording? Okay, we're still recording. All right, number 5. Whew, okay. I hope you're still listening after I say this. Do 7 to 10 practice tests. I think that's reasonable. Okay, hear me out. So let's say you find some way to get at least one free practice test online, which is very doable. So that's already one. I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing the AAMC practice test. This is the meat and potatoes. They're the people who make the test. If nothing else, take theirs. Absolutely. See what they're talking about. Because if they're okay, this is what we think is important, 9 times out of 10, that's how your test is going to be. When I took my Mcat, mind you, didn't really feel like it was too much like the AAMCs at all. And I also didn't feel like the AAMCs actually showed the progress that I was really working for. But if they're the people who administer the test, then that's all you need to know. Literally, take theirs. All of them. Every single one. Eat it up. So then I did Next Step. So the way our group did it, we basically all purchased 6, and then we used them multiple times. Probably not legal. I'm so sorry. Basically, you can come up with the best possible way to take as many practice tests as you can. When I did Next Step was kind of overshoot on a lot of the tests. And so I was always more humbled when I did see my score, and I was is that really what I got? Okay, So with that in mind, there are other resources that would give you the practice that you need. I remember doing a Kaplan test as well, and it was very detailed and very in the weeds, but it gave me a different perspective on my score. You will never regret taking too many practice tests. There is a thing called burnout, yes, but if you feel yourself getting burnt out, acknowledge it, do something about it. Take the time you need. Absolutely. Do as much as you can until you get to that point. And if you notice that, you're getting the same score over and over and over, stop, take a break. Take a break. Look at me. Take a break. Really come back and look at what's going on. What mistakes do I continue to make? What's your pattern? Find your pattern. That goes back to, the other point. But take as many practice tests as you can. When I was doing my studies, I started out, the first month I did once a month. And then I would always do my practice tests on Saturdays because my test was on Saturday. So literally once a month, I would, and this is really good too because it gets you in the habit of packing whatever meals you're going to have. It gets you in the habit of preparing for your breaks because it's a long test. So I had my little Mcat bag, and anybody who's, studied with me in my prospect program knows exactly what I'm talking about. I had my little Mcat bag. It had my glasses in it, my glasses cleaner. It had contacts, contact solution. It had eye drops because my eyes would get dry. Advil because I would get a headache if I looked at the screen for too long. I was drinking pre-workout sometimes when I felt myself kind of get tired because pre-workout gave me a boost. Probably not healthy, would not recommend, but I was doing it. And so I had enough of my pre-workout, you know, if I needed that. I had a small water bottle because my bladder is a joke, and earplugs because I wanted to make sure I had those. So that was in my Mcat bag. And I also packed my lunch. So my Mcat meal was a turkey sandwich, and then I had, I can't even remember, I think I had like fruit. I know I had cucumbers, and then I had like, just like little snacks, probably like almonds or something. But I had this from the first exam. Maybe I like tried something new, but for the most part, from the first exam to my actual exam, I was taking the exact same thing every time. This was actually advice that we were given in our post-pack program because you don't know how food is going to affect you. We know that food affects your energy, affects your stamina, affects your mind, all of that. So you want to make sure whatever food you pack, whatever food you plan on eating is optimal for your performance. It's basically like, you know, you're an athlete and you need to maximize everything that you do on that day. So you're going to practice. You're going to practice having your food. You're going to practice having your Mcat bag. And you're going to make sure if I left, you know, my pre-workout and I had to run off pure energy, how long was I able to last? Did it go well? And I really had to take that in. And you learn when you don't have those things, how it affects you and how important it is to make sure you have it on your actual test day. So I also had nasal spray. Yeah. If you're wearing a mask, practice in your mask. If you have to wear a mask at your testing center, practice in your mask. Hands down. Every practice test. You're not going to regret preparing in these ways. You're just not. If the worst case scenario comes down and you don't have to wear a mask on your test day, kudos. You get to breathe on your own with no worries. What do you lose? Nothing. All right. So take as many practice tests as you can. And I had a set goal and I told myself this, and I advise you to do the same. If I wasn't making my goal, which was over 500 by 3 weeks from my exam, I gave myself grace to move my exam. I was dead set on never taking this test again. I was so sick of studying for the Mcat by the time I took it. I was just like, I'm never taking this test again. And I mean it. I was actually in my Mcat and I said, I'm never taking this test again. Which, side note, I was petrified because my Mcat froze during the car section. It was pretty tragic and traumatizing. But I made it through. It's fine. Made it to the other side. But I definitely told myself I was sick of studying for this test and I was never taking the Mcat again. So in doing so, I wanted to make sure when I did take it or when I was going towards it, I was prepared. I first saw my first score over 500 about a month out from my exam. So this was a good sign. I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to keep my date. It was May 19th of 2018. Oh, I cannot believe I remember that. And yeah, it was a very, very agonizing experience. I was stressed, and I had been practicing breathing exercises on every break when I was doing my practice test. So I knew I would be anxious. These are the methods that I'm using to calm me down. And I would do 2 minutes of breathing on every break because that's just like something that I knew I needed to do. I needed to calm myself. I knew that anxiety affected my performance, and this is a really important thing for me to learn. And that's okay. As long as you know it and you learn it, and then you can address it as you take your practice test. In taking my practice test, about a month into my studies, I did it once a month. The second month, I was doing it every other week. And then a month out, I began doing, this is crazy. So probably like 6 weeks out, I did every week. And then within the month, 3-week mark, I was doing 2 practice tests a week. And it's crazy. Saying that out loud now is probably a lot. But I knew I was tired when I would take this test. And I just didn't want fatigue to be the thing that took me out. I was like, let the incorrect questions be it. Like, don't let it be me just being too tired and clicking through. And I was also the type of person that wouldn't get through all the passages. I don't know if it was me reading too slow. I don't know what it was. Me spending too much time, but I would not get to all the passages. So I kind of had to make the answers that I did get to, make sure they were right most of the time. And that was just really important for me. So this being said, I was taking 2 practice tests a week at one point, and it was exhausting. It was. But as I was getting fewer wrong, it was easier for me to correct my exams. It was easier for me to get through those incorrects and restudy those and things like that. And the more questions I saw, the more things I had to refine what I didn't know. It was really great. And 2, in doing those practice tests, I made my schedule a lot more structured so that I could fit breaks where I needed them. And that was huge. So all of this to be said, if you are watching this and you are preparing for the MCAT, you are fully capable of this. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. It's just one exam. It's not going to define who you are as a student, who you are as a person, who you will be as a doctor, who you are as a medical student, any of that. It is simply an exam. And you are fully capable of conquering this. And if this is not the test that you score your preferred score on, then that is okay. It is perfectly fine to take the MCAT multiple times. You are fully capable of this. You can do this. Nothing or no one should intimidate you from actually achieving your goal. And if this is really your passion, if you want to be a doctor, if being a physician is something that you really want to do, then it's going to happen. It's just going to. So study, take the time you need, take breaks, be kind to yourself, practice positive self-talk, and I am excited to see your journey. So I want you to comment below about your MCAT journey, your MCAT experience, your MCAT fears. If you're studying for the MCAT right now and you're fed up, tell me about it in the comments, because I would love to hear about it and we can be annoyed together. But at the end of the day, you're going to move past your annoyance and you're going to get back to studying. If this was your study break, I'm glad to hear it. So share this with somebody who you know is studying for the MCAT or might be studying eventually. And ideally, you want to have your MCAT taken in the month of May so that by the time it comes to submitting your application, then you can just send it off. If you have your score by May, ideal. Like, that's a deal. But if you don't, if you're still taking it, because typically it takes about a month for you to get your score back. So yeah, if you can take it and have your score back by May, that's perfect, because applications open up. For me, they were open June 1st. So, or they can be submitted June 1st. I think they open up at the beginning of May. So this is all really good to know, because timeline is very important here. And if you aren't, a really strong test taker, take the time you need. If you need 3 to 6 months to study for this test, completely understandable. If you are working while studying for the MCAT, give yourself 6 months to study for this test. It's big. And you will not regret giving yourself too much time. I don't think I've heard of anyone saying, I had too much time to study for the MCAT. That's just not a thing. But you are fully capable of doing this. So, like I said, thank you all so much for joining me. I hope some of this was able to help somebody. And I look forward to hearing how your journey goes with the MCAT just being a moment in your journey. It is not going to be your entire journey. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at medical_Mcat. I forgot to put it in my last video, so I'm going to do that today. As well as like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, to this video. Share this with somebody who needs it. Like it. Please give me a thumbs up if you watch this, so that I know that what I'm doing is helping somebody. So thank you all, and have a wonderful time. I'm excited for your journey in medicine. You're going to be an outstanding physician, and there are patients waiting for you. For you. For you. All right, bye. Hi, friends. So if you enjoyed this episode, I think you would really like this one next.